All right, so today I'm going to do a head. Haven't done just a head for a while, and I'm going to do something that I haven't done for a while also. I'm going to do a Zorn palette. Now the Zorn palette basically is white, and in this case I'm using titanium, yellow ochre, Venetian red. I didn't have Venetian red, but I do have transparent red oxide, and I mixed a little bit of red with it, and it's a very similar color. Venetian red is kind of the color I usually use, and then ivory black. And with that, we're going to get the full color effect and basically do the head. So what I'm going to do initially is I'm going to look at this head as if it's in a box, like this. Long, and it would be a long box. It would be a long, and the angles of the box. The angles of the box are going to be kind of like this. And on this side, it's going to be kind of like this. You want to go quite that big. And the top of the box here, and the bottom of the box is probably about here. All right, well, that's approximate. It's probably a little longer now that I look at it. All right, so once we have that, I'm just going to kind of shear off a little bit of the sides and a little bit of this side. Right, and then we're going to kind of just get a little bit of drawing down. And it comes down, and it's probably about here, sticks out a little bit, maybe a little bit higher up. Down here, this is the same thing, it sticks out about there. This is just, I draw different every time I work, so I'm just showing a way of beginning to solve this. And once I have kind of the basics in there, the eyes probably going to sit about here. The angle, the two eyes, I've got it just about right. And the nose, or it's off-centered, probably about here. You notice I'm constantly saying probably about. All right, now we're going to look for shapes. There. These are approximations. Bottom of the nose could be about here, probably. That's probably all we're going to start with. And then I'm going to start painting. And I'm going to start, I think, with one of my big old clumsy brushes. We're going to start laying in tones. I'm going to do something a little different than this looks. I'm going to put a black background in. So I'm going to take basically black. Mix a little bit of the red with it if I want to warm it up just a little bit. But we're going to kind of come, maybe put a little bit more juice into it. Juice meaning terp. So it doesn't, I don't have to fight so hard to get it to go down. And right about here, his shoulder. And probably his other shoulder drops down more like it where his mouth is. So this is going to be about here. So there's kind of some starting points we can use. All right, with that in mind, because I'll be doing adjusting as I go along, we're going to start with the basic kind of reddish flesh tone. So for that, I'm going to use I'm going to call it is red oxide with a little bit, and I don't want it to be too red on me, so I got to throw enough white into it, a little ochre and a little black. All flesh tones can be made up of all three colors with the white. That's probably just about where I want it. All right, being the case, I'm going to put a little medium with that. And I want to start with something so I can build into something. I'm working on a very lightly primed, light gray primed canvas. And I kept it gray because I wanted to stay true to the Zorn palette. I didn't want to do a color down there. So I'm going to warm it up as we move down towards his cheeks. Just by adding a little bit more of the red to it. A little bit warmer. A little bit warm towards the tip of the nose. Always warm it up. Always, the key on when you're painting a nose, the nose will, 9 out of 10 times, not always, but I'm saying 9 out of 10 times, and I'm about right with that percentage. The nose will almost always have your lightest light. And you have to look past that in the beginning. You cannot start with that. You have to really look past that lightest light. All right, so there's kind of some base tones we can lay down. Now let's kind of go for the hair, or let's go for the tone in the eyebrows, the eye socket eyebrows. So we're going to start with the, I keep wanting to say Venetian red, even though it's what do you call it? Red oxide, transparent red oxide. I don't want it, I want it a little bit grayer, so I'm using a lot more black, a lot more yellow. Whoops, probably went a little bit too black that time. White is your lightening agent. The other three colors basically are, they're colors that you can use to get your basic color down. So we're going to kind of pull it there. We're going to get that eyebrow in. Kind of the angle. It looks pretty good. Just approximate shapes. Don't want to go as dark as I can go, so. But it looks like I'm kind of timid. It's because you don't want to be too dark at this point. Okay, so I'm going to stand back for a second, get my proportion down. Looks okay. This is pretty good. The angle looks about right. Going to take a little bit more of the red oxide transparent and put the folds in around the nose. I think I might have that nose a little too long. It's going to go a little bit more that way. Okay. Stand back. So you can start to see the drawing of the faces starting to come together. But we're going to constantly double check these proportions because I'm not convinced, and I never am particularly if I'm doing portraits. The difference between a head and a portrait. Let's talk a little bit about that. A head is a head, and it should look convincing as a head. It doesn't have to be anyone in particular, but the structure should feel correct. The proportion should feel like it's a normal head, but you're not necessarily depicting a specific individual. All right, where portraiture, yes, you're capturing as much of the character of that individual, along with, if you can catch some of the sparkle and the personality. It's one of the things that's very hard to do, but I think if you're going to be a portrait artist, you really got to do that. And portraiture has always been it's what really got me into art in the first place. When I was in high school, really about my junior year in high school, I started trying to do some portraits and found I was pretty good at it. Now, I didn't paint them because I didn't know a darn thing about painting. I did them in pastel and charcoal, whatever. And eventually, got to art school and tried painting, and where I could do a pastel portrait, I couldn't paint a portrait to save my life. I could paint a portrait, I could get all the, but it was just stiff. I could not get the real look. So I'm mixing more black and a little bit more of the red into that black. Come down below. His mouth is going to fit right somewhere about in there. I think it's got to come down a little lower. But I'm not positive, I'm not sold in my proportion yet. All right. I can see right now at about this point, this beard is going to come out a little bit. I'm going to have fun with that beard. So if that, I look at, go a parallel line right across from his mouth is where it's going to come out about in here. It's going to come out. We bring it down a little lower, probably about up to here. So it's a little bit of a drawing element that I employed there. And we'll come in and we're going to start to carve this part of the face. A little bit of the red into that, and I'll keep it a little bit in the brown range. Probably have it a little too dark there. Give the guy a little gray in his hair. Probably has. Right about here, there's a bump. Let me get back. Now, I have the nose too long, I can tell you right now, which is good because I want the beard to be longer. And by shortening up that nose, it's going to solve that for me. Okay, let's go down here, go a little blacker. About So we want to get this, well, if I can get this lay-in done, then we can really spend some time playing with color adjustments, value adjustments. But the key is get the lay-in, get your basic proportion and the lay-in done so that when you go to that other stuff, you're prepared for it. Okay. Let's shorten that nose just a little bit. And I'm going to take a little white. And we'll kind of bring it in here, a little bit of the red and yellow. A little bit more of the white. And I'm picking up a little medium. Now the medium that I've laid out today strictly is safflower oil. I don't have any of my solvent-free gel laid out. I'm not really sure why. I just didn't lay it out. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. More of that white. Right about. Okay. Let's get a little bit of that. And take a little bit of having a little fun with that. Let's see if we can get that nose in now. I'm going to abandon that brush for a second and pick up one of my other brushes. I'm going to take some orange, or some, excuse me, I'm going to take some white and some ochre back into that red color, the flesh color I was using. A little bit more white. Let's try it again. I'm going to stand back. Okay. Take a little bit of that color mix a little gray with it, a little of that color. You start to see a little bit of light happen. So I move around a lot when I paint, whether it's a landscape, a figure. Whoops, got a little dirty there. And quite a bit lighter here. Always like to cool off the forehead a little bit too. Generally speaking, I will test it. So that goes a little cooler. I mean, that's basically a lot of black and white mixed into that flesh tone. Okay, and I see a little bit of it right about there. Okay. Clean my brush a little bit. Let's go back to the nose. Get a little bit of warmth in that. Bring it down on the side, wing of the nostril, down towards the tip. Towards the tip, it gets a lot more red. Right there. Okay. Back to the base color. And we get a little carving. Step it back. Looks pretty good. This particular character was in Italy, and I really have no idea if he knew I photographed him, simply because I got a whole body shot. This is a blow up from the body shot. It's not, and so it's clear, but it's not real clear, which is fine. Like I said, I'm not necessarily doing a pour, I'm doing a head. It's starting to come together. All right. I'm going to leave things alone for a little bit. I'm going to move down into some of the other areas. Let's get into that mustache area. And it's gray. And it's not only gray. I always don't like to mix just two colors together. Very, very seldom. You want to mix kind of most of the colors. So I want to come in right about here. Too dark on purpose, because I want to leave room to go lighter. That's why when I said too dark on purpose, that's really what I meant. We're creating hair. We're going to pick up a little more black because we want to go a little darker. I don't like that stroke at all. And it comes over probably about here. That's where the light. And then there's a little bit of light sneaking right about in here, and a little light on his coming from here and then coming, but it's going to go lighter. We're going to be able to amplify those bright. So we want to be able to hit the lights and always have them. It's like we have a rheostat, and we put the light on, and then we're going to pull it up and really get it to kind of separate a little bit more than it's doing at present. So really what we're doing at this point is setting it up, and what you're doing also is you're seeing if it's going to work. All right? Because if you put it in there and you realize it isn't quite working, there's no sense in punching it and making it stronger. It's coming out. Now, get a little bit of warmth back where his mouth is, but it's very, very dark. It's right about, that's probably not dark enough. So I mixed a little bit more black into it. Looks like it's going to be right about in there. All right, and I can begin to push some of this area, but I think before I do it, I'm going to recarve a little bit of the underside of the nose. I'll do that a little later. Boy, I see some, as I look at these, the more I look into it, the more stuff I see. The more stuff I see, the more stuff I want to indicate, but I don't want to indicate everything yet. I want to give myself the time for this to develop. Since it is just a head, I'm not doing a whole bunch of other things. I actually have that opportunity. Now, let's go back and start to work on some of the structure. So it's a much grayer and darker version of the first flesh tone I put up there. And so I tested it, and I think I'm about, oh, that's pretty close. Right about here. Now I'm using, just so you know, this is a number 10 filbert bristle. I'm going to switch over to sables or my rosemaries in just a little bit second. My rosemary sables. Get it a little darker. So we sneak up on those darks, we sneak up on those lights. Step it back. Okay. When you hear me say step it back, it means I'm stepping back. One thing when I step back is I can tell if I've pushed things too harsh. Because when you're doing this, you just don't know. Now, I'm going to grab one of my nice little synthetic mongoose. We're going to bring there. Okay. A little bit of that same kind of tone, I think I can bring in right here on the wing of the nostril. It's like I'm questioning myself constantly as I work through. Am I pushing enough? Am I going too far with things? Am I making things too obvious too soon? So I don't feel I am. I feel like the head is coming along more or less the way I want it to. And you know, that's why I said more or less. A little bit more medium. Go back to my flesh tones. Lighter. Got a little black in that paint, but I don't mind a little bit of a color change. Lighter right in here, because we want to bring this whole plane down. A little lighter, a little more yellow. Yellow meaning the ochre. A bit more light right here. A little bit more light right here. Definitely a little bit more light right here. Now let's lighten this whole plane up. So even though I put that first color down a while ago, I've given it a lot of modulation already. A little bit of a crease in this. Oh, didn't quite get it. Let's try it again. Right above it. Starting to get some nice feeling of structure into his face. Can start to kind of be more careful now, which is what I'm doing. And we're basically just about 30 minutes in, so I feel like I can slow it down a little bit, since one of the nice things about just doing a head is I don't have to worry about a whole bunch of things. So hopefully what you can see begin to happen when you don't have to worry about a bunch of things is you can begin to see more development of form, because that's really what it allows you to do. Keep stepping back to see if it's working. It kind of is. I really want this thing to have a lot of, bring a little bit more red right here, a lot of punch. And I think probably I can push even further with that red. So you can actually give a figure more character by emphasizing some of the color variations. You can do this more with males than you can with females. Probably still have his nose a little bit too long. It isn't bothering me, so I don't mind it. Portrait-wise, it's probably a little off, but like I said, if it isn't really bothering me, I'm going to keep it, because I announced the fact that I'm painting a head, not necessarily a portrait. Yeah, I definitely have that nose a little too long, which is making the mouth a little too low. So that mouth is probably going to have to come up to about here. And the nose is easy enough to carve up because basically we have black underneath. So we're doing something like that. I'm re-establishing okay. So I'm going to want to hit a little bit more on the tip of the nose, of the redness. We want this to come from right there. So I'm going to go into the eyes a little bit. Same brush. I'm going to use a little red and black. The red meaning and we're going to see how this looks value-wise. Whoops. Not sticking, so I just threw some more medium. Try it again. I'm going to throw a little more black into that. So it's a combination of the red color and the black. Very dark right there. So what you start doing at this particular point is you're beginning to sculpt back into it. Okay, we're working that. Then I'm going to get back and look at it and make sure I got them in the right spot. One thing is to put them in, and the next thing is to double check it, make sure you get them in the right spot. So let me step back. Yeah, it looks okay. Again, they feel a little high, which is making the nose feel a little long. I'm going to correct it one more time by working this area a little bit red, and this area, and that as it pulls down. And then if you look carefully, this eye socket is actually casting a shadow, not quite that dark. Right about there. And the same on this side. We got to get that light. There we go. So I messed up the wing of the nostril when I brought that up, but that's par for the course. We're going to restructure that just by doing something like this. And then I'm going to take my, what I started drawing with right at the beginning, I'm going to carve that nose up still. I know you've seen me do it twice. Now you've seen me do it 3 times. Maybe, you know, who knows, I may have to do it 4. Feels better. I've already kind of arbitrarily moved that mouth a little bit. Now, underneath it, pretty easy. Just kind of come back and shift a few things like that. And we can make it, hopefully get it to work, which I think it's starting to do. A little bit more up here. I think I'm going to switch over to a different brush in about a second. I want it flat. I want to push the darks right in here. Really hit those blacks. Right about there. Let's get that cast shadow in there correctly, and the corner of the mouth has got that nice, there's always a deep dark right in here and right in there. So you don't want to establish something too quick without getting those nice rich darks in there. I can get a little bit of darkness, but a warm, because it's got a lot of red in it. But he's getting one of his crow's feet. There. There. Double check. We're going to double check our drawing and the hairline in a second. I can see something really interesting happening. And I'm going to set that brush down. So I've used 3 brushes. And I'm going to pick up one of my nice, which one? Let's pick up this one. It's a rosemary. And we're going to take white and black. Probably a hint of red in it, but basically very cool. We're going to kind of try and bring the hairline. Oops, I want it a little darker. Not much. There we go. And we're going to make that hair stand out a little bit up in here. Okay, that feels pretty good. Now you notice how sharp the nose looks at the tip? That's because I raised it so many times. I've got everything going right down. So I'm going to take some more of that red. I'm going to do a few things. The red and the back into that flesh tone. We're going to hit the wing of the nostril. We're going to hit. Nope, it's not sticking, even though it's very red. So I had to put more medium once again. All right. Feels like it's starting to shape up. I kind of like the brush work up in here. I notice as it goes over to the side, it gets a lot lighter. So I'm going to take that nice brush I was using, mix some more white into it, and bring it into the flesh tone. And we're going to start right here. And I see a little bit of a light happening right here. Okay, so we're structuring that forehead. Now that head to me is starting to come alive. Just kind of in the beginning stages, but it is coming alive, which makes me feel just ecstatic. Or at least happy. So I'm mixing up a lighter tone with my little brush here, and I'm just testing it. I want to see. Yep, that works. But what it is I mixed more yellow and more white into the basic flesh tone I was using. So that's what I'm saying. Remember what I said about you start and we keep amplifying the structure. We start with, and we go push it, we push it, and you got to be careful you don't push it too fast. That would be the one mistake that you don't want to make. You don't want to punch it up too quickly. So the structure of the basic face is starting to come alive. Now let's get a little bit of the shirt and beard in there. So we don't want to leave it alone. I'm going to go back to my big brush, go back to my dark, keep it kind of somewhat loose. I've got some other colors mixed in here. So we're going to try and find this spot right here. Now look at the spot where this puff comes out and it starts with the dark right here. Where does that set? That sets about here. So I'm saying that's where it happens. And on the other side, where is that? That lines up about here. And how far out is it? It's out about this far, so we're going to take it here. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to take that same brush that I was using and I'm going to mix it back into the flesh tone, because I've still got a lot of dirt, meaning a lot of the residue of the black in there. So what I can do right now is, that's not quite right. Let's try it again. Nope, I'm still missing. Somewhere in there, I'm going to hit it. Let's step back. The point of that lines up with that eye. Means it's right here. Okay? So, we've kind of established where his beard is sitting by putting all this into it. Now, what we have to do is get it to work. And I'm holding off on the beard's the fun stuff. And I want to get a little bit of his shoulder in there. Don't know if I'm going to paint the pattern in his outfit, but I'm going to take straight black because I want this to look blue. So the way you make something look blue is you get rid of red and yellow, because those are the three primary colors, if you think about it: red, yellow, and blue. So you get rid of red and yellow, and what you're left with is kind of a blue. So I'm taking black, white, terp, and more white, and we're going to start right here. So we're going to, if you follow from here, right down there. Got it? It's right there. That's pretty good. And on the other side, same thing here. Here. Okay. So let's start to get his beard in. Now his beard has a lot more yellow in it than that. So I'm going to take that same gray, move it down, and I'm going to actually squeeze a little bit more white out. I don't think I had enough white right out There's a reason for that. I want to take a little yellow to that color. A little bit more. And we're gonna, yeah, that's pretty good. Let's, a little bit more black into that yellow. It gets reds, all kinds of interesting colors down in here. And that's where you really start to have, I think, fun. Pick up a little red here. You almost have to let it happen. Let me step back. I keep stepping back to see if the color and value is coming out. It's pretty good. Probably have it out too far, but I don't care. It kind of, if I'm going to make a mistake, I'd rather have the beard too bushy. Put a little bit more black back into that. A little bit more. Not enough. Try it again. More black. Got a little of that red mixed in with the black. A little bit more black right in here. You gotta look, a lot of times, I've watched people paint beards a lot. And a lot of times people just go like that, right down, and they don't get the movement of the beard or the mustache. It doesn't go just one way. It's like hair. It can grow a lot of different directions. So you kind of want to get the movement and the feeling of that. And about the only way you can really do that is by kind of over layering, if nothing else. You layer it in there, you layer it out. So we're going to come in a little bit more white, a little bit more yellow. And let's try it right down here. No? Yeah, that's about right. How we doing there? Let's see. It's looking okay. I can see a little problems here and there, but overall it's not bad. And where are we at? Okay. So I'm a little over halfway. Which is about right. It's almost where I'd like to be. I'm loading a little bit more white in the brush, and that's why I'm getting those kind of really nice hairy strokes. So I'm probably pushing too fast here. That's I'm just saying that because I'm beginning to feel like I'm going too much towards finish too soon. But I'm going to hold back right now. Try and get this bottom working a little bit better. I'm not crazy about the way it's setting up. So I'm going to take the black, the red, keep pretty dark, and start to move it back into the beard so I almost can't tell where the beard stops and the pull it a little bit that way. This looks real flat right here. I don't like this at all. So we're going to get a little bit of movement color back in there. There we go. This is real dead and flat right here too. You see that? I like the brushwork in there. I just don't like it's quite as flat as it is. So we want to get a little bit more character moving on. That feels better. Now I feel like I can abandon that for a little bit. I can kind of leave the beard alone for a little bit here. I think the first thing I should do though is kind of finish some of this stuff off down here. Okay. Let's go back into his shirt. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go back into his hair a little bit. Right. There, I see it. Oh, I like that stroke I just did. I think it defined a little bit more what his hair is doing up above. I tell you what I don't like is right here. The way that light. Okay. So we're softening that down. Let's go back into his shirt a little bit. White and the black. Not crazy about that shape, but I will fix that. Okay. Let's keep going with this. Get a little more of a shirt in. Clean that brush a little bit because I want to get any of the red that I might have had in there out. Kind of go. Okay, that's pretty good. Just going to clarify a few things. I'm not really going to finish that shirt up. I might put some, I don't want to put any pattern into it because I think it'll just going to detract. Although it would help to a degree. I just contradicted myself. It'll detract. No, it'll help. So I could take the front of the shirt and darken it a little bit if I want to. And take, the light is hitting very strongly, but there's a nice little wrinkles right about here. Nothing on this side. I don't want to, and there's a little bit of a, the light is hitting very strongly on that shoulder. So I'm going to take some pure white and some medium. And I'm going to come in, see what I can do here. Same on the other side. Where's that shoulder? Coming right from his nose, a little higher. Okay, let's get a little bit of this going on right here. Okay, just put a few of the kind of a wrinkle here or there, anything I can do to add a little character to the shirt without overstating it, because I'm trying to just do a head and not do a rendering of a whole body and everything, because I want to really put my emphasis back into that head. But that's shaping up. I think what I need probably to do is to take some pure black and fix that edge, and then come over here, fix that edge. I kind of like that black, the way the black is working with the, there we go. I feel better about the shirt. It's not 100% there, but sometimes, you know, you're almost better to leave it underdone. So I'm going back to this nice big rosemary here, and I'm going to go back to my flesh yellow, and I'm mixing up a new one, yellow, white, and a little bit of the red, a little bit more white, a little bit more yellow, and a little medium, because it was feeling just a touch of black, so it isn't too. So let's kind of take a look right here. That's a little, it's not, I need a little bit more black into it. It's a little bit bright. There we go. Just looking to see subtleties. And if it goes over to the side, I may be painting it too far. And I see it get a little cool right about here. Okay. That needs to do some things in here. Let's go back into where that nose is and start to push a little bit here, because we want to leave room for that nice rich highlight. A little bit careful. Starting to shape up. I just stood back. So that's the reason I said that, is I was able to stand back and see that it went a little darker with the flesh tone. Now we're going to go right here. Probably a little too dark. I like to use these brushes that almost feel a little bit too large and try and use them in a way where it really starts to work. So we're getting that worked out pretty well. And we're going to take it right over here. I'm going to go a little cold. I see some of those lights get a little bit cold. So I mixed a little bit of gray into it. We're going to start right here. Up near the muzzle. Get a little bit more gray. And then the creases get very dark. So I'm going to see what I can get by with it. Just a pure red color. I'm going to add just a touch of black to that. No white whatsoever. That looks pretty good. That's too black. I want to keep more red in there. There we go. Folds on the flesh. You always want to keep warm. Always. Yeah, when I stand back, it works. Now, this is bothering me a little bit. The mouth is kind of like that, but not quite. And there's a little bit more shadow detail in that beard right about here. I'm picking a little too much right now, I think, with a small brush. Whoops. Push it right back into the black. I went way too light on me, too fast. Just take black and push it right back in. So it goes back into the shadow. Okay. Black and the red. We wanted to get the corner of that mouth. And okay. Now you see on the corners where it's getting a lot of white. So I'm going to take white and a lot of yellow. Because it's not a cold white. Right here. Right. Need more medium. Why? Because it's not sticking. And when it doesn't stick, that's your key. A little bit more there. And there. And so you see kind of what I was talking about how you really want to start to build, and you build your lights and you build your darks, which really starts to give the believable structure to the piece, which maybe it didn't have in its beginning stages because you're setting up for it. So there's a lot of subtlety, and if I wanted to work for about 3 hours, I could really want to get a little bit of the hair in the eyebrow. I just noticed back in here, it's giving us a little bit of the hair in the eyebrow. And notice I have not pulled the bright lights. I'll do those at the very end. That's the last thing I'm going to do. I'm going to take this brush and see if I can get a little bit more going on in the beard. Okay. Now that eyebrow has got it's so interesting. It's got so much going on in it. So I went a little darker first. So we're trying to make it feel like there's actual detail back in those eyebrows, even though we're doing it very, very carefully. Still don't like the feeling of the mouth. And we're going to pick up more of the deep, dark flesh right about in there. I can go a little bit lighter, I think. That feels pretty, oh, no, it doesn't. I just stood back. It felt really good, and I stood back and looked at it, and I went, nah, not quite. But some of the beard works its way up into there, and it gets really, clean my brush. I get a good spot on the palette, yellow and white for the beard. Remember, the whites aren't blue. So we're going to come first right here, little medium into that, flow better. I could throw some turp into it too and it wouldn't hurt. Same thing, white and yellow. Stepping back, need to get a little bit more snap right up in here. It's a little harsh right there. I want to get this to transition better. Up here. Back it off. All right, go back to the grays. Maybe a little red in that gray. A little darker, right? Don't like that right now. It's a little too harsh. Comes up too high also. Working a little bit better. Trying to get a little bit more. Now this hair up in here feels like it might be a little cooler. And that happens, by the way, just so you know. It's like hair, particularly gray hair, blonde hair, particularly light colored hair. It's not all one color. It's not that one neat color. It's like, I mean, there is more color in, say, blonde and gray hair than there is in brown hair generally. So I'm going to hit all that. Now I can always come in and redraw if I'm off in any of these areas. Same in there. That feels like I can go black, more black. So I'm going to take my big brush, medium. I think I'll throw a little turp this time. And you notice how I'm going over certain areas several times, very simply because it's what I would do in a landscape, given the time. I would keep going back and readjusting. And that's kind of the beauty of being able to paint longer on just a head than I would if I were doing an entire figure, because I'd have to concentrate and get enough of the figure in. Therefore, you know you're not going to get the same kind of time play. Don't like that area right there. So we're going to go back with the flesh, the dark, warm flesh. Bring it up a little bit. Whoops. Still not there. Try it again. And I'm going to lighten it just a touch now. There we go. I want to get a little bit going on down here. I don't like that kind of running off the page the way it does. So if I just took the black and brought it down that way, I think it's probably better off. And let's go back now and fix some of these things. That's close enough. Got a little bit of information going on in the shirt without kind of overplaying it. That's pretty good in the shoulder. I think I probably went a little too crazy there with my carving, but I can always go back and that's better. Just by softening that edge actually helped. Now this feels like it comes out too far. I did it on purpose, but that's when you start taking your background and you go back and you start carving back into things. So take that black, I think we're about there. Probably start putting highlights on. Haven't done that. I've held off on that on purpose. I think I'll go back to this nice big, no, that's not the one I want. There it is. I want my mongoose. I want to be bold with it. Now, since I have so much warm underneath, a lot of times you can get it to bounce by just adding a little bit of coolness. So I'm going to take black and with a little white in it, and I'm going to test it right here. Right there. Standing back. It stands out pretty good. I'm not crazy about the color, so I'm going to bring a little bit of other color into it, not much. Bring it up that way. And then we'll bring it over, and we're going to use the paint that's down there. Pretty good. But as I start to lay that in, I can see how much lighter I can get right here. And then almost join those. Okay, so let's pull back. Still don't like that. I'm going to mess that. even if I just took I'm going to take a fan. Haven't used it yet. This is my really neat fan that I bought in Italy. I love it. I haven't tried. I've hardly used it, but that's kind of nice. And we can kind of do a little bit of fussing around there. So I'm going to clean that for a second. Now, same white I was using. We're going to hit right there. And there. It's going to come down on the bridge. About there. And then really get strong right here. Probably too strong. Well, it looks pretty good actually. It is stronger. And I think if I just fuss on the edges just a little bit, I can probably get it where I want it. Because I can see that I can go a little lighter on the wing and on this part of this wing. Oh, I get it again. It's a little too strong out there. It's working, just a little stronger than I want. I do want a little bit of fussing out in there. This is a little flat right here, so I think I'm going to go back to that fan. There it is. The fan will make hair-like strokes, which is kind of one of the nice things about them. And I'm going to put some light in now. You hear my lovely dog outside barking? That's Murph. So it's shaping up pretty close to where I would like it to be. I could see where I could do several more layers on the beard, but for me, it's almost always the case. It's a matter of how far you want to push it. Now, I pushed that a little bit on the nose, a little more than I wanted. So I am going to go back and soften it just a little bit. Just barely touch it. And that's the key. The key is not to sit there and labor over it. It's just to barely skim it. Now, I'm going to go a little brighter on the cheek. Why? Because I just noticed it. Top of the cheek, meaning right there. And so what you're doing is you start to build more and more structure, so to speak, into this thing. See, I don't like some of the strokes there. It really has more to do with the characteristic of the strokes that I'm putting in than pretty much anything else. A little bit of color, little bit of it's that, but pretty much it's strokes. And it's just a matter of doing it, stepping back, do it again, step back, do it again, step back. Finally, hopefully leave it alone. But it takes a while to build it up to that point. Now, you notice how when I put that in there, I toned it down by blending it into the rest of the, so if I go back with white and a little bit of the blue, I should say, I call it the blue, and some medium, I should be able to put a highlight within the highlight, which the strongest highlight is right about here. And I step back, it just gives that much more structure. But once I put that in there, what you can begin to realize at that particular point is how much farther you can push this. How much lighter. Take a step back. Okay, I'm just going to push a few more things. Just strengthening what I see. And we're pushing this paint back into the paint, which is kind of one of the fun things to do, you guys. Those of you where I don't get a chance to do this as much, when I'm really just struggling to try and get everything down that I possibly can. So I'm having a little bit more opportunity to really get in there and develop the form a little bit more than I would if I were doing something like a landscape. And you got to remember, sometimes you don't want to develop a lot of form, and that might be in a landscape. Generally, in a head, you're going to want to develop the form. So we're just about got everything in there. I'm going to take this fan and get the residue out. There's a lot of terp in there. And what we can do is loosen some of that shirt up a little bit. I like to lose a little of the hair. A little bit of lost and found kind of is always fun. Way to soften. It's a good way to soften, but you can really overuse it. I've seen people overuse this brush just a tremendous amount. But I've also seen, I've got a couple artists that I've watched recently do most of their painting with a fan. So basically, it's a matter of what you want to do with it. So I'm going to be finishing this up probably a little bit ahead of schedule, which is fine. It's part of it is simply because I'm only, like I said, as I've said 2 or 3 times, I'm only doing a head. And because I'm only doing a head, what that does is it affords me the opportunity to get into a little bit more of the painting that I might if I were doing, you know, like I said, a full-on landscape or something along that line. So we got the shoulders come in. pick some of this up if I want to. I don't want to, again, I want that shirt to almost feel like it's been sketched in and not really painted in there. Simply because I don't want to detract from the study of the head. Basically, it's a study of a head. It's not so much a portrait as it would be a study of a head. And if, for example, I had the opportunity to go back and let it sit for a day, I might come back, knock down a few things in terms of their value or in terms of their color, start to play with a little bit more color variation. I'm just starting to notice things that I could have pushed further earlier. A little bit more. When that head turns, it gets warmer, and then as it comes down, it gets a little cooler. So we get, or a little lighter. So I'm trying to get kind of a gray flesh tone to kind of flesh out, so to speak, the temple region, which is a little bit of light. Temple regions tend to be a little grayer than other parts of the flesh. It's like, you know, there are various temperatures within a head painting or within a figure. One of the most obvious examples is the hands. The hands tend to be much more red than other parts of your painting, and you can actually emphasize that quite a bit. Something still isn't right here. I kind of like it, but it still isn't quite right. So one of the things is I want this beard to grow down into the face a little bit more. So I'm going to bring some of those flesh tones and paint right down into the beard. Whoops. But I'm going to take the black and the red together. I'm going to try and that helped. Just that little stroke. Amazing. Amazing. Sometimes that's all it takes is one little stroke, and it'll make the biggest damn difference in the mouth. I want to take and start to carve that back. Let me stand back. I'm going to take a little bit more gray and white. I'm going to see what if I can push a little bit more back in here. Yep, went too dark. Yeah, that works. Helps a little bit. Bring a little bit of the more flesh tone into it. Bring some of his forehead. There we go. So we're pretty much there. I'm going to bring a little bit more red into his beard. I don't see a lot of it, but I do see a little right about in here. And a little bit more black into that same color. I just stood back. This felt like it needed to be darker as I stood back. And it looks like I could have a little bit more, and it's got some red too. Boy, I just noticed the red about in here. So we're basically about done. And this is a Zorn palette, you know, for lack of a better word. The Zorn meaning limited. And when I was in school, I learned it as a limited palette. And come to find out that Anders Zorn was using the same thing. And it's probably where the teacher that I got it from was Paul Souza, was the instructor. And it's interesting because when I first started teaching, the first thing I usually would have my students do, even back when I was teaching 16 years ago down south, but particularly at the academy, what I would always have people start with is this 4-color palette with a still life, with pretty much anything. I just think it's a great way to start. I do know a couple artists that use the 4-color palette, and what they do is they paint the whole darn thing in the 4-color palette. Then at the very end, they make a decision. Do I need to add anything more to it? And so they may decide they need more. And so, you know, that can happen. Just trying to get a little darker, so we focus more, again, of the energy and the interest up towards the head. And pretty much am where I want to be for a head study. You know, I can always go one stage further as far as the cool goes, say on that nose, where I could take white and black, keep it on the slightly gray side, because the final highlights very often are cool. So we've hit it there. I didn't cool it off as much as I could have as we came down. Whoops, too much white. And hope you guys got something out of this. A little bit different. Return back to kind of some of the landscape stuff that I do. I at heart, more of a head painter or portrait artist, figurative, than probably anything else. But I've sure learned a lot from painting plein air. I'll tell you that. I know I've said this before. I mean, that's where I feel like I go to school. When I go outside and I do a plein air, it's just, the landscapes that I do in the studio paintings are great, because that's where I kind of earn my bread and butter, so to speak, is doing a more refined studio painting. But for the sake of learning, and the other thing, I don't want to just put it off to learning and make it sound like it's just all learning. Hell no, it's not. It's fun. And that's the other aspect to to painting outside. It's a kick. So we're pretty much going to call this done. And continue. I'm going to go get something to eat. And hopefully you guys will maybe try one of these. They're always fun. It happened to be a wonderful model. He probably doesn't know I'm doing a painting of him, but so be it. Anyway, thank you all. I enjoyed it. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Anna. And thank everybody for watching. Bye-bye.